Hey good people, and welcome back to the channel. It's another Wednesday evening, which means a new review for Married at First Sight San Diego. So over the course of this review, I'll be giving you my episode breakdown, followed by my thoughts on the couples for this episode, and I'll finish with an overall rating. So without any further delay, let's jump right in. Episode 12 marks 18 days before decision day with these couples. And throughout this episode, Dr. Pia gets a chance to visit the couples and ask some very important questions. The couples are given some very silly games to play, as well as some activities and props for the show, which I consider to be filler. There's also a group session with the men meeting together and vice versa, and there's a ton of drama. Now, if you haven't seen the episode yet, then I would advise you to treat this episode like a bill collector and avoid it. And if you give me a few moments of your time, I'll happily tell you why. The very first scene shown in this episode was of Mitch speaking to his female friend about his issues with Krysten. Mitch tells his friend that there was one night where he was in the middle of giving Krysten that good old pickle tickle, and he made a joke. Then Krysten said something in response, and it made him insecure. Now, because Mitch often speaks in code, allow me to decipher and interpret what happened. Mitch was about to give Krysten the best 12 pumps of her life. Mitch proceeds to say something dumb, like he usually does. Then Krysten fired back by making a comment about his stroke game or the size of his Johnson. Mitch then got offended and it made him feel insecure. Mitch's friend gives him some solid advice, but knowing Mitch, such advice will not stick with him for long. But after the 30-minute mark for the episode, Dr. Pia comes to visit them, and her first question is, "How have things been going?" And they respond by claiming that everything is good and there's complete trust between the two of them. Now, if you've seen the last few episodes of Married at First Sight, then you would know that Krysten and Mitch are lying. And I believe that they're lying because they're trying to control the narrative like Lindy and Miguel try to do. But Dr. Pia then plays a card game with Krysten and Mitch, and it doesn't take long for Krysten to become emotional and speak her mind. You see, folks, Mitch has a knack for saying something dumb or ruining a moment. And he does this for this episode by questioning one of Krysten's answers. And in my opinion, Krysten's response kind of nullifies the act that they were putting on previously when they greeted Dr. Pia. But I have to give Krysten credit for not publicly blasting Mitch when Dr. Pia asked him about their sex life. Mitch claims that he doesn't remember what led to their fallout, but Krysten, on the other hand, remembers every single detail. But their time with Dr. Pia ends with Krysten telling Mitch what she needs from him in order to continue sleeping with him. Now, knowing Mitch, he may put on an act to make Krysten think he's changed, but at this point, I don't think Mitch would really care if the marriage worked out or not. Next, we have Stacia and Nate. Their first scene is with Dr. Pia coming to visit them. And after the meet and greet, Dr. Pia asks them about their progress since they last saw her. Nate takes the lead and he shares that Stacia doesn't really trust him yet, and it makes him frustrated. And in my opinion, if trust is still an issue, then why the hell did y'all get matching tattoos so early in the game? But Dr. Pia asks Stacia if she connects trust with control, and Stacia has a light bulb moment. This is because Stacia likely equates the money that she makes and all of her assets as enough for her to be viewed as the boss within the relationship. And I've said countless times before that Stacia needs to be in control and train Nate to march to her beat, and it seems like Stacia has an issue with somebody who makes less than her trying to tell her how to do things in her life. I was proud of Nate for standing up for himself, but Dr. Pia challenges Stacia to come up with an activity where she has to completely rely on Nate. And in my opinion, this is one of the best activities that an expert has assigned to a cast member for this season. I think it's worth mentioning that Stacia invites Nate to a sex dungeon, where she gets handcuffed to the bed and she allows Nate to do some things to her. Now, of course, Married at First Sight is still a family show, but brother Nate was doing some 50 Shades of Grey type stuff with Stacia, and I watched on like a proud father. He took out some whipped cream, some melted Velveeta cheese, and barbecue sauce, and he proceeded to lick them off of various parts of Stacia's body. It was truly a romantic experience. And Nate even went in for the full course. He put the sheets over his head, and he proceeded to treat Stacia like an all-you-can-eat buffet. I guess the brother was a little hungry. But next up, you got Alexis and Justin. Prior to Dr. Pia coming to visit, Alexis and Justin have a heated debate, or what I like to call intense fellowship. And at the center of this debate was Alexis and her desire to hang out with her friends every weekend. Justin feels like this is an issue because they are still strangers who got married, and Alexis is spending a lot of time away from him, which somehow lessens their connection. Alexis, on the other hand, feels that Justin is smothering her, and she just needs an escape. Now when Dr. Pia comes, Justin and Alexis both share their side of the story. And after it's all said and done, Dr. Pia more so sides with Justin than she does Alexis. And this causes Alexis to go into victim mode and claim that this session is not good for her mental health because Justin and Dr. Pia are ganging up on her. I really liked how Dr. Pia was able to cut through Alexis's BS because she was coming off as very manipulative during the scene. Dr. Pia then asks Alexis directly if she's ready to be married to Justin, and Alexis responds by saying that she doesn't think so. This answer causes Justin to get in his feelings and take his wedding ring off in front of them. And if I were Justin, I would have just asked for a divorce right then and there. Alexis has spent the majority of the season publicly embarrassing them. She isn't giving up the cheeks, and she claims that she's going to the club for 2 hours every weekend with her friends. Now, if I were a betting man, I would say that Alexis is clearly cheating on Justin this entire time, mainly because she's openly expressed how important sex is to her, and she doesn't seem like somebody who will willingly go celibate as long as she is living and breathing. But in the second half of this episode, we see Alexis spice things up by doing a pole dance for Justin, which was awkward considering that they still haven't gotten past second base and her pole dancing skills are a little rusty. Now, this exercise was supposedly intended for them to get in the mood for some intimacy, but the blindfold exercise killed whatever momentum was established. And in the blindfold exercise, Alexis and Justin were supposed to tell each other what they think about one another. Justin uses the exercise to really let Alexis have it and tell him what was on his mind. But when Alexis has her turn to talk, she tells Justin only nice things. And this causes Justin to be suspicious, but Alexis Prinky promises that she didn't have anything else to say. But she later clarified her comments by saying that she already said what she needed to say, which in my opinion speaks to their issues with communication. Alexis has an issue being upfront and honest until she's boxed into a corner and she has an audience to embarrass Justin. I truly believe that she's cheating on Justin and she's emotionally checked out at this point. But this episode ends with Alexis and Justin getting into an argument over all the issues that happened throughout the episode. And the producer comes in and plays referee/counselor with them, and in my opinion, this particular producer needs to be hired by the show as one of the experts, because she was able to cut through all the BS, pull them to the side, and try to solve their issues in a productive manner. Next we have Lindy and Miguel, and as usual, this couple really didn't have much going on with them for this episode. While the other couples are trying to work out their issues, or at least pretend like they're working out their issues, Lindy and Miguel spend nearly all of their screen time on the episode practicing what life would be like if they had a baby together. And in order to do this, production gave Lindy and Miguel one of those lifelike baby dolls to practice with. In my opinion, these scenes were a complete waste of time, and we got to see them do more giggling than anything. It just adds credibility to my thoughts that Lindy and Miguel are just faking their progress on the show just to look good for the cameras. And as a result, production is stuck with using whatever Lindy and Miguel give them to work with, which isn't much. But then there's Morgan and Binh. We first see them sitting together on the sofa. Morgan is in her hospital scrubs, proving that she is indeed a nurse, and they're both looking miserable. Dr. Pia finally shows up to save the day, but when she asks them how they're doing, Morgan immediately goes into victim mode and she begins her Academy Award winning performance as she starts to tear up and recall how Ben's lies completely destroyed their marriage. Now, of course, this is yet another episode where we don't get to go into the details of what Binh said outside of what was said on the honeymoon. But at this point, it's like beating a dead horse with a stick. And as Morgan is sharing her soliloquy, Binh is sitting next to her looking like a hostage, speaking real low and coming off as emotionless. It seems like Binh is completely done with the situation, but Morgan claims that the only way they'll make progress is if Binh gives her an emotional apology, which is kind of subjective if you ask me. And in my opinion, Binh is tapped out emotionally right now, and he needs an expert to offer him a way out of the marriage. But towards the end of the episode, the men meet for a group session. Miguel brings the baby with him and the guys thought it was funny. Binh tells the guys about his progress with Morgan, and from my observation, Binh was showing some signs of life around the men, while being completely lifeless around Morgan. Justin then shares his concerns with Alexis, and that prompts Nate to give his opinion, for which he essentially says that he didn't feel like Alexis was right for the show, or she really loved Justin. We also get to see the ladies meet for their group session. Morgan shares with the group how she wants more emotion from Binh. But what Morgan fails to realize is that she's emotionally draining, and after dealing with her personality, no man would want to open up to her or deal with her madness. Krysten shares her issues with Mitch, and Lindy openly disrespects Mitch while not being corrected by Krysten, which is a red flag. And Alexis tells the group that Justin wants to spend all of her free time with him, which is a lie, because Justin clarified his position on the issue multiple times throughout the episode. But what I find interesting is that Alexis more than likely lied to the women the same way that Binh lied to Justin about Morgan, but I don't think Alexis is going to catch any flack for it. But overall, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'll give this episode a solid 2. It was draining, drama-filled, and aside from Nate and Stacia, I don't see how any of the other couples really benefited from their experience this episode. Thankfully, we are in the home stretch of Married at First Sight this season, because the foolishness is becoming too much for me to handle. But this marks the end of my review. If you have any questions or comments about the episode or the review, feel free to leave them below in the comment section and I'll respond to everybody. Until next time, stay tuned and stay safe. Peace.